There are two levels at which you can manage your network fields: at the network level, and then you can manage it by agency at the agency level. For managing your fields at the network level, first you need to be logged in under the network organization, and then go to administration and click on fields. This page will list all of the fields available in the client intake process, and it's separated by the tab of each part of the client's profile that needs to be filled out. There are two sets of columns available. So the first group is on/off, and including within that section, on-locked, on-optional, and off. On-locked means that this field should be locked across all of the agencies, and they shouldn't have an option to turn it off. On the opposite end, off means that this field should be set to off across all agencies, and they shouldn't have the option to turn it on. On optional means to turn it on, but let the agencies decide if they don't want to track it. The second level, or the second set of columns, is required, not required, and choice. Required means this field should be set to required across the board, across all of the agencies, which means it needs to be completed before moving on to the next page. Not required means it's an optional field, and choice means let the agency decide if they want it to be a required field or not. So depending on what is selected would also possibly gray out certain options. So you'll notice here for marital status, since it's set to off, it really doesn't matter if it should be required or not required. But when we have something, if I set identification to unlocked and required, this row of identification wouldn't show up for an agency because the decision has already been made for them. If I set it for, let's go to languages, languages should be on optional and not required. This means that it has been decided that this field is going to be not required no matter what, but the agency can decide if they want to track it or not. So this means if they do choose to track it, it has to be an optional field. It has to be not required. If I maybe go to, let's do on optional choice for self-identifies as, this means I'll let the agency decide both if they want to track it, and if they do, they can even choose if they want it to be required or not required. So there are a lot of different combinations available, and based on what is selected here will affect what the agencies see when they log in under the agency level. If you've set all of your fields to either on, locked, or off, at the agency level, this whole page would be blank because the agency doesn't have a choice to choose or to change any of the selections that you've made at the network level. Each option has a little question mark icon describing what the field is. If the field has a set list of options, or maybe customizable list, if I click on the little plus icon, I can click on identification. And it will take me to the identification list where I can see what I'm currently tracking and maybe add or remove certain options here. The exceptions button here under the exceptions column allows me to see is what other people are tracking or other agencies are tracking based on the choices that I've given them. So some may have chosen to, they do want to track this identification, but they want it to be not required. So the list will represent basically the choices that have been decided. And so every tab is listed, every option in each tab is listed as well. And depending what's selected here will reflect at the agency level whether or not they've been given the option to customize it themselves.